Good evening and welcome back to the Average Joe Sports Show. I am your host, Braden. Join me once again. We have my dad, Mark Good. And today we are going to be discussing a little bit about Kyrie's tweets about changing the NBA logo and whether or not we should do that. And if so, who the logo should be. So Mark, welcome back to the show. We're glad to have you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And then we're just going to go ahead and start off with a fun little fun fact on this day in NBA history. The Chicago Bulls beat the Atlanta Hawks 168 to 161 in the third highest scoring game in NBA history. That was a couple of years ago. So March 1st, 2019.
Is that triple overtime or?
Doesn't give me that many details, but another fun fact is Dominique Wilkins back in 1988. Dominique Wilkins of the Atlanta Hawks scored 50 points in a 117-104 loss to the Detroit Pistons. So there you go. There's a little bit of a throwback sports fun fact for you guys. So our big story of the day is something that's been bouncing around social media for a while, and it's Kyrie tweeted a few days ago. I guess it was on his Instagram, actually, not tweeted, but he put on his Instagram, "Gotta happen. I don't care what anyone says. Black Kings built the league." That is a direct quote from Kyrie, and he wants to see the logo be changed to Kobe Bryant. And the logo that he drew up was a full-size graphic of Kobe on top of the blue and red logo. I wasn't personally a huge fan of it. I happen to like the logo. I like the origin story, and I actually like that it wasn't meant to be Jerry West. I did some research in preparing for this story today, and something that I read was talking about how the man that designed the logo was looking through old editions of Sport magazine in search of inspiration and found a photo of basketball superstar Jerry West. In a single frame, the photo seemed to capture the fluid, fast-paced nature of the game, and so he created that solid white logo. So it wasn't like he was out there looking for Jerry West as, oh, Jerry West is going to be the inspiration for the logo. You know, it's like he just looked through a bunch of pictures and was like, dang, that picture speaks to me, which is a pretty unique way of having it happen. So I don't see a need to change the logo. I don't think I'd be opposed to it if there was a good enough design that came along. Mark, what are sort of your thoughts about that?
I agree that the logo is fine. It doesn't need to be changed. I think that once you start changing logos like that, then how often do you start changing the logo? Is it because you want to sell more merchandise, or is it because there's a compelling need for a change? And then getting back to the Kobe thing, it's like, why Kobe? Why not any one of the like 5, 6, or 7 or 10 players that are better than he was in the history of the game? So,
are there 10 players that are better than Kobe though?
Well, off the top of my head, I would say, yeah, I probably could name 10 players that I think are better than Kobe.
Okay, interesting. I don't think I could.
Wilt, Kareem, Magic, LeBron. Who did I skip? Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, Jerry West.
I think that one's a bit debatable.
All of them are debatable. I mean, yeah. You can't have an argument about players without having some debate. I mean,
okay, well, I got you at 7 right now, so you got 3 more.
Well, I started. I'll stick with there's at least 7.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's like, pick any one of them, and I personally would say there's no need to change the logo. The logo's fine. It's been great for all these years. Kyrie, if he really did say it needs to be a black person because the black people built this league, he's just being Kyrie. I mean, that's I'll just leave it as that's Kyrie.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think I can see the reasoning behind why he would say Kobe. I mean, he did die in that tragic accident. I mean, but they already have renamed the All-Star MVP trophy after him.
Yeah.
which is, I mean, that's a pretty huge step to have a trophy named after. I think there's a handful of players who have a trophy named after them. You know, you
And
got
how many times did he win the MVP of the All-Star game?
probably just, I mean, probably not
One or two,
three
maybe.
times.
I mean, it's fine. I mean, he was definitely an all-star player. He was definitely the best player in the league after Michael Jordan retired. He kind of took that on himself, and
so I guess they both won. So both he and Bob Pettit have won it a record 4 times.
There you go.
So
I don't have a problem with him changing the name of the All-Star Game MVP trophy to represent Kobe. That's a nice thing to do, but you're going to have to come up with a better something than just, oh, he died in the helicopter crash and it wasn't his fault and it's tragedy. And it is a tragedy, but I mean, that's not a good enough reason to change the logo.
Well, I don't know. I think for me, I think that there's several options you could go if you were to change the logo that wouldn't necessarily highlight a specific person individually. I think if you did a guy shooting a jump shot or somebody doing a fadeaway, that could encapsulate either Jordan or Kobe, and Jordan is regarded by many to be the greatest player of all time. You could do something like that and since jump shooting is more a part of the league today than dribbling the basketball is, I mean, you can't, I mean, everyone's talking about spacing, 3-point shooting, spacing the floor, hitting the floor. No one's really talking about, dribbling the ball up the floor, which is something that Jerry West, was obviously great. And it's something that still happens, but the focus and the emphasis in the league now is all about who can get the shot down, who's shooting the ball. So I think that seeing a guy doing a fadeaway, just doing a black, doing the same logo, but just changing him out for someone doing a fadeaway or someone making a jump shot that, again, isn't based off any player specifically, but I think it'd be an interesting thing to sort of revamp the league. I mean, the logo's been around for 50 plus years now at this point. So I think something like that could be pretty unarguable, or, just sort of like a fresh rebranding to sort of encapsulate the modern NBA.
And that's possible. I would have to see a mock-up of a logo that is compelling to change. But I don't think I've seen anything at this point that makes me want to change it. And I don't, the jump shot is maybe a little static, where the dribble is more dynamic. So I'll stick with the old.
Yeah. And I also feel like Jerry West himself has said that he wouldn't mind not being the logo. I think a few years ago he said there's a lot of pressure that comes with, everyone's saying, oh, he's the face of the league. Oh, he's the face of the franchise, or, he's the face of the NBA. Like, I think that's something that should be taken into account too, is maybe Jerry West, not being fully comfortable with the fact that he is the logo, and maybe he wouldn't be opposed to a change, sort of putting the onus on someone else to be, the model for the league.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure that Jerry doesn't care one way or another, but it gets back to, I saw an article this week about somebody wrote their opinion of the best baseball hats for each franchise, and the ones that I would rank up at the top are the Dodgers and the Giants, who haven't changed their hats since 1958 when they moved to California. And it's like, so they've been there this whole time, no need to change. It's already as good as it's ever going to be. And these other teams, they change things just to make things different, and different isn't always better.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's also a marketing opportunity. I mean, if you change, I mean, you just look at when a player changes jerseys, all the massive influx of, let's say LeBron goes from number 23 to number 6. All of a sudden everyone has number 23 LeBron jersey. Oh, they got to go out, they got to buy that number 6, and there's a huge jump in merchandise purchases because everybody's got to have the best, brightest, newest thing. Mm-hmm. So were the Lakers, or sorry, were the Dodgers and the getting back to your hats, were those the top 2 hat designs that were those the top 2 on the list, or did someone else?
No, the list was just each team's. They didn't rank by team, okay. But they, so they ranked each team. So if they wore their best hat in 1974. That was the one that this, and it's
Okay.
all subjective. It was that person's opinion. So yeah, but I just thought it was interesting that the Dodgers and Giants haven't changed their hats in 60 plus years, and there's no reason to change their hats.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Like, I think if it ain't broke, don't
Logo
fix
is
it.
good. A logo is good. Keep it.
Yeah, I mean
I'm
that's a classic logo. Like, everyone recognizes the NBA by that logo.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like everyone recognizes the NFL because it's got the shield with the NFL across it, or baseball because it's got the baseball.
Yep.
Guys
Don't
taking the
change.
swing.
You don't have to fix things that aren't broken.
Yeah. One of the ideas I heard that I thought was, I actually heard a couple of stupid ideas. Someone wanted to have it change every few years, like just to have a constantly rotating, like on a constant basis, like have a 10-man rotation of, this player for 2 years, this player for 2 years, this player for 2 years. And I think that would just get confusing at a certain point.
Yeah, then now your league doesn't have an identity anymore.
And then the other idea I heard was that let each team come up with their own NBA logo and use that logo for the NBA, which I thought is just boneheaded and idiotic, and it makes no sense. I mean,
well, see, and that's why they have their own uniforms. The teams have control over their uniforms, and I did see a thing this week where I think it was, I don't even know who it was, Atlanta and somebody. Anyway, two teams showed up with the same red jerseys.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, I saw that.
That's the problem with having multiple choice jerseys. It's like it's not like the old days where you had the home jersey and the road jersey, and it's like if you're not at home, you're wearing the road jersey. If you're at home, you're wearing the home jersey, and there's no confusion about what color you're wearing. And the team that's playing you, there's no confusion about what they're wearing. So
they did the same thing. I think it was the Nationals, the Cardinals did the same exact thing this week too, where they had the same exact red, they're both wearing red uniforms.
Yeah, I saw baseball. Yeah, it was like the only difference was one team was wearing gray pants and the other team was wearing white pants. It's like, yeah, let's make this as confusing as we can.
Yeah. Well, especially if you're colorblind. I mean, it reminds me of those color red jerseys the NFL used a few years ago, and you had I think you had green and red were the two teams that were playing, and colorblind people couldn't tell who had the ball. All the jerseys looked exactly the same.
Oh man.
So I mean, I think that's not very intelligent. I mean, and now granted you do have these teams. Now you have the Lakers that are going to wear their Minneapolis uniforms, or they'll wear the uniforms that were done way back in the day. But the good thing about the Lakers uniforms though is that they've primarily been purple and yellow throughout most of the iterations of the franchise. So when they change the colors, it's not super complicated. It's still yellow or purple, although now they've made white, black, purple, yellow.
Well, see, that's the thing. They, back they used to wear the yellow uniforms at home and the purple uniforms on the road. And so you knew that if you were playing the Celtics, they were wearing their white uniforms at home. They would wear their green uniforms on the road. And, most teams wore their dark uniforms on the road. The home team had the light jerseys. Most teams had white, but the Lakers had the gold, which is a little more iconic for them. But,
I think
even at that, if you're wearing your throwback Minneapolis jerseys, you would still wear the white ones at home. And, you wouldn't wear your road. You wouldn't have a road Minneapolis jersey necessarily, although I suppose if it was throwback night for both teams, I suppose you could do something like that. But
I know they've rocked. I think they've even rocked the blue Minneapolis jersey at home for some games. So, but I think honestly, I think that comes down to marketing. I think if you're selling if there's 4 different jerseys you can sell. You have those diehard fans that, I got to have my LeBron James in the home uniform, the away uniform, the blue uniform, the throwback uniform, the city edition uniform, the Mamba special uniform. I mean, it's like it's a marketing opportunity. These teams are able to sell these jerseys and make money off them because people are gonna want to have the newest, freshest jersey. Oh, they changed. Oh, it's a redesign for the city edition. Awesome! I got to buy that jersey now.
Yeah. Well, and that's. if you're going to have multiple jerseys, you better tell the team that's coming to play you what one you're wearing so they can wear a different one.
Yeah. Or just bring, I mean, if you have 5 different jerseys, just pack 2 and then you can just pick one and then you just pick when you get to the stadium. It's not like they take up that much space.
Well, the home team has the, it's up to the home team to pick what jerseys they want to wear, and then you have to wear something contrasting.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But getting back to the logo, I mean, again, that's sort of the problem with redesigning the logo. Like I said, like I'm not opposed to the idea if there's a good enough design that comes out. And I did see one where it was a black, it was a white silhouette of someone doing a fadeaway that, it could be Kobe, sure. Could it be Jordan? Sure. It could be any number of players in the league.
You just have to look at the shorts.
How high they are depends on who it was.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jordan started in the short shorts era.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, I think what's funny is I watched a game where the NBA players are wearing the short shorts in today's NBA, and these guys were pulling down their body, their Under Armour, whatever it was, their little floor.
Yep.
Trying to get a little bit extra length so they're not showing as much leg. So that's always amusing to see players that they care that much that the shorts are. I don't think the league has done short since then. I think they learned their lesson on that one.
Yeah, probably.
So logo, if there's a good enough design, I wouldn't be opposed to changing it. But again, it would all come down to what the design is, and I don't know if I would necessarily support it being a specific person. I think that then puts too much onus on said person, as Jerry West has said that he feels too much. He feels there's a lot of pressure of being the face of the of being the logo, sort of the face of the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I wouldn't be opposed to it if there was a good enough concept.
They're going to have to come up with a better story than what I've heard so far, and certainly a better logo than what I've seen so far.
Yeah,
to make me change my mind.
Yeah. Speaking of the Lakers, they're on a 2-game winning streak, which is directly related to them getting back Dennis Schroeder. I think that he's been dynamite for him. I think he's a game changer for him. I mean, he adds some speed, some athleticism, some ball handling. Definitely gives LeBron some additional scoring help, which is something that he had to do. And they actually blew out the Golden State Warriors last night. What was it, 117 to...
Well,
I don't know.
90 something, but the game wasn't that close.
Yeah, it was.
They were up 30 or 40 points at halftime.
Yeah, it was. Let's see. At halftime, it would have been 73 to 44. So
that's a nearly 30-point lead at halftime.
Yeah. LeBron actually got to sit out most of the fourth quarter, which is good because LeBron James has been running a lot of minutes recently, especially with the Lakers. Mm-hmm. Trying to get them out of their 4-game losing streak before this game, which was rough to watch.
Yeah, they you take 2 of your top 5 players out of the game, and you're going to struggle, no matter what team you are.
And that's something I think I heard. I think I was listening to Undisputed this morning with Shannon Sharpe, where he was saying that's like, you take Joel Embiid, take away Tobias Harris and Ben Simmons. What is he going to do? Take Nikola Jokic, take away. Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. What's he gonna do? It's like you take away any MVP candidate's top 2 running mates. What are they gonna do?
Yeah, no, it makes it a lot more difficult to win games, and it's not like they were getting blown out. I mean, there was a few close games. They they did blow one of those games where they had a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter, but I mean, it's just a lot of pressure on guys that aren't used to holding the fort. When guys that are expected to take those lines are out of the game, then it makes it difficult for everybody.
Well, especially because Anthony Davis is like the Lakers' backcourt stalwart. I mean, he's somebody who can hold down the fort on defense and is a heck of a ball player.
So they signed who was that guy they signed?
Damian Jones, who played like 8 minutes. Well, I think he had 8 points, 3 rebounds,
he had a really
2
nice
blocks, 8
nice
minutes,
bit of game there.
and then he hurt his back and got brought out of the game. So that's a little rough for him.
Hopefully it's not a long-term thing, because he looked good in the limited time he was there.
Well, I think it's a good thing that they picked him up, because I think what the Lakers are missing is a little bit of what Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee brought last season. I mean, Marc Gasol is a good enough big man. I mean, he's a good playmaker. He's a good passer, can spread the floor. He's a big body, but he's not the most athletic guy on the market.
Mhm.
So I think that adding Damian Jones gives him a little bit extra athleticism that I think they were missing for a while there.
Yep. Certainly without Anthony Davis back there, Marc Gasol looks slow.
Yeah, he's like a glacial. He's moving at a glacial pace. You know who else is surprising right now is the New York Knicks, who are actually above 500.
Is that like the first time in years?
I don't.
Probably.
I'm gonna look. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how. I'm gonna see if I can find that real quick. But yeah, so the New York Knicks are actually on a three-game winning streak, which is so. This is only the third time they've been over. It looks like this is the third time they've been over 500 after 35 games for the third time in the last 20 years. So, and then I don't remember who had this take, but there was someone who had a take talking about the New York Knicks where he said prime Julius Randle versus prime Chris Bosh, and he said that prime Julius Randle was actually a better player than prime Chris Bosh.
That could be.
Which I'm not sure if I'm buying that. Chris Bosh was during his prime, Chris Bosh was a multiple-time All-Star. He was over 20 points a game. I think he's averaging almost a double-double, points and rebounds, leading that Toronto Raptors team. And then I think his stats took a hit when he got next to LeBron and Dwayne Wade, which could still technically be considered his prime. But if you're talking about a guy who was carrying a franchise, I think I would take Chris Bosh over Julius Randle, because I don't know how well Julius Randle stretches the floor. I mean, he is a first-time All-Star, but
yeah, he's a good player, and he's got a lot of interesting skill sets, things he does really well, and I think he's kind of probably figuring out the things he can do well and doing more of those. And he was a pretty good player when he was with the Lakers, and you saw the potential for him to get better. And, he left on his own. So,
yeah, this actually, he's actually shooting 42% from three-point line this season.
Yeah, I think he's a pretty interesting player.
But I almost expect him to probably be more like LeBron James, who fell back down to planet Earth after he had that scorching start to his season. He's now been average. If you look at his previous high for 3 points was 34%. That was his high, and that was 2 years ago. So, and last year he was only 27%. So, I mean, that's almost a 20-point jump. I don't know if I'm buying it. I don't think that's going to be a sustainable thing. I think he's going to come down to maybe mid 30s. I think he's just on a hot streak right now. I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe, but some of it just depends on the quality shots that you're taking. Are you taking shots where there's a guy that's got his hand in your face and you can't see the basket, and so it's contested and stuff? Or are you wide open because your team is doing something that is moving the ball around and finding you in a spot where the closest player to you is 8 feet away, and it's like practice. So, when there's no pressure, when you're not thinking about it, sometimes that's all the difference that it takes.
Yeah. So then I'm just looking up Chris Bosh's numbers right now. I'm looking at his seasons in Toronto, where he was, 9.4 rebounds, 20 points, couple of blocks. And then let's see that with Julius Randle. Let's just say from this season, some other seasons. I mean, for this season, his stats are better than Chris Bosh's are this season, but for his career, which I see, you could say that maybe his prime is just now starting, and it happened with the Pelicans.
Right.
If you're looking at his Pelicans numbers, I mean, he's not as good of a rebounder as Chris Bosh was in his prime, but I mean, his scoring is right about on par too.
Mhm.
less of a defensive threat than Chris Bosh was. So I still think I'd take Chris Bosh just looking at the prime, but there's still time for Julius Randle to possibly overtake him.
Yeah, if he continues to get improvement, then who knows? But he's intriguing because he does a lot of things well, and he can handle the ball, and um, he's good in traffic sometimes.
So actually, and also this past week there was some there were all stars that got announced, the all star reserves. So just quick review of the Eastern Conference of the reserves. You had Jaylen Brown, James Harden, Zach LaVine, Julius Randle, Ben Simmons, Jason Tatum, Nikola Vucevic, and Domantas Sabonis, who is replacing an injured player on that list. And then for the Western Conference, you had Anthony Davis, Paul George, Rudy Gobert, Damian Lillard, Donovan Mitchell, Chris Paul, Zion Williamson, and Devin Booker, who is replacing Anthony Davis. Are there any big snubs that come to mind, or people that you think should have been named to the All-Star game this season that were not?
No, I don't. I can't think of anybody, and I'm probably not the person to ask that because I don't pay attention to individuals' stats and that kind of stuff too closely. Zach LaVine is always a surprise to me because I don't think he's that good. But
yeah, well, I think this season he's actually been I think he's been pretty
he's
good.
been scoring pretty good. I know he was hurt the Lakers when they played them earlier this year, but I was like, how I just like watched that. It's like, how are you letting this guy do that to you?
Yeah. So let's see. So yeah. So before Anthony Davis' injury, or before Anthony Davis was replaced, I think one of the biggest snubs was Devin Booker, because the guy was shooting lights out for the Phoenix Suns. I'm glad that while it sucks that Anthony Davis is injured, I think it's good that they was able to get someone else in there.
Mm-hmm. Well, invariably, no matter what you do, whether it's in the NBA or MLB or whatever, you're always going to have a guy that's probably playing as well as some other all-stars that don't get picked. And there's just because there's a limited amount of players on your roster, you only can get, I don't know, whether they got 12 or.
Yeah, so I think it's so it's 5 starters and 7 reserves. So yeah, so it's a 12-man roster.
Yeah, it's like a regular roster. And I think in the Major League Baseball, I think they balloon it up to 30 for the All-Star game, but still.
Yeah, I think the Bam Adebayo maybe should have had a spot in there. I mean, he's been averaging 19, almost 20 points, 9.5 rebounds, 5.5 assists. And combined, he's getting just under 2 steals or blocks per game. He's shooting 84% from the foul line. So for a big man, that's impressive. And then 81% in the restricted area. So, I mean, he is, what I'm impressed by is the 5.5 assists. Everyone talks about Nikola Jokic's passing, but I mean, Bam Adebayo, 5.5 assists. That's not bad.
Yeah, no, he's a really good all-around player. So yeah, that's probably a snub, but I don't know who you would take off. Well, Zach LaVine was that on the.
Yeah, he was on there.
I would get Zach LaVine off that team and put Adebayo on.
I'll see. What I'm curious. What let's see if we're to compare those. What is Zach LaVine doing this season? He's almost averaging 30 points a game. So I mean, you can't laugh at that. So I mean, maybe there were no snubs. I mean, maybe they got it right. I feel like all the Heat fans though can definitely make a case for for why that was wrong.
Did Jimmy Butler make the team?
Nope, Jimmy Butler did not.
Yeah.
And I think a part of that might have to do with the fact that the Miami Heat are, they made it to the finals last year, and I think they're suffering from hangover. They didn't even win the championship, and they're suffering from the championship hangover.
Well, it's tough to sustain great play when you're playing over. When you're overachieving.
Well, and I think part of the problem too may have been that you had teams that weren't ready for Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero, and now that they have, now they've had an entire season to figure out how to key in on those guys and shut them down. I think those two have been struggling, and that was part of the reason why they're so successful, because those guys are able to come in and just knock down shots. So, the fact they're struggling is is indication of that. Teams adjust. You know, it's how it's like, you know, it's something I've always believed is that the great players, they always adapt their game to find another level. Kobe Bryant, you know, his athleticism disappeared. So what do you focus on? Footwork, working on a mid-range game. LeBron James, I mean, for some reason his athleticism still hasn't dropped, but he's still expanded his game from back when he was a young man that was, you know, drive freight train to the rim and dunk it. And he's still,
Well, he doesn't attack as much as he used to, but if you give him a little bit of a sliver of room to get through, he'll take it because he recognizes it, which is probably his biggest strength. Is he sees the game pretty well.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the things, you know, and that's sort of one of the things I think it marks a great player is that they're able to change their game. You know, Vince Carter, back in his early career, he was known as a high flyer, you know, slam dunk contest winner. I mean, the guy could fly. And then he got older, athleticism gone. So what did he do? He developed a 3-point shot. You know, he became a much smarter player. And that's what I think some players in the NBA don't understand.
Great players are always evolving. They're always adding something to their game. Or
I mean, if you look like a guy like a Russell Westbrook, who his game is straight up athleticism. He has not changed his game. He has not developed his game. He has not grown his game. He is going to age poorly. You know, I mean, and you see that
it's possible.
You see a lot of great players who don't adapt their game. You know, they age very poorly. I mean, you can even see that in football. Tom Brady, the guy is a super highly intelligent guy, and he never takes sacks almost. And it's helped him to be in the league for 40 something years. Whereas take that with the guy with Big Ben, who is younger than Tom Brady, but is a whole lot worse than Tom Brady because he doesn't put in the work. He hasn't changed his game, and he took a lot of hits when he was younger.
I don't know about doesn't put in the work.
I feel like compared to a guy like Tom Brady, I think
I don't know.
I think there's few people that work as hard as, you know, as a LeBron James or as a Michael Jordan or a Kobe Bryant or a Tom Brady. Those work ethics are rare.
I think that in the case of quarterbacks, I think the undernoted thing is how well are they protected. You know, if you have a quarterback that's getting hurried like all the time, which is what Tampa Bay was able to do to Kansas City. I mean, Mahomes was running for his life in that Super Bowl, like from the first play.
Yeah.
And if Brady was having to deal with that kind of pressure, Kansas City would have won that game. I mean, there's no way Brady is going to survive having to run for his life every single down. And, you know, the same thing with Russell Wilson. You know, he is under a lot of pressure because his offensive line isn't very good. And
well, I actually heard an interesting counterpoint where, I mean, he does have a lot of, you know, his offensive line isn't great. And so that does cause him to, you know, take more hits. But another thing of it is that he likes to leave the pocket. And if you leave the pocket and your offensive linemen don't know you left the pocket, they don't know where to keep you safe.
Well, it's because this pocket was collapsing around him. There was nowhere to go.
But I mean, and on some plays, I'm sure that was the case. But I'm sure there's other plays, you know, where you don't necessarily. I mean, I think there's some of these quarterbacks, you know, you look at a Lamar Jackson or a Russell Westbrook or a Deshaun Watson, these athletic guys who are known for having good speed. Well, I think they tend to leave the pocket and they tend to run.
Yeah, sometimes they got happy feet and they start they run before they had to.
Yeah,
you know, they get nervous.
Can't count those sacks against an offensive line because that's not their fault. If they don't know where you're going to be, how can they protect you?
Right. Yeah, there's definitely that happens sometimes, but and I'm not going to take anything away from Brady. Brady is a great quarterback and he understands the things that he can do really well and he does them. And he reads defenses as well as anybody out there, so he knows what you're giving him and he takes advantage of that. And you know, if you have a quarterback that does that, you're in a lot better position than if you don't.
Yeah. So before we get wrapping up, the other big news in the league today, or in the NFL, is J.J. Watt got signed by the Arizona Cardinals for a 2-year deal. It looks like it's worth a total of $31 million. What do you think about What do you think of the signing? What do you think it means for the NFC West? I mean, I don't know if you're. I mean, I'm a Rams fan. I don't know if you're a Rams fan too, since they moved to LA, or if you follow
No.
football as much. You're not. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Do you have an NFL team?
No. I mean, I like the Seahawks, and I like Tom Brady. Wherever he goes, I'm going to be voting for him to do well. I don't know what the Cardinals, if a defensive end pass rushing specialist was their Achilles heel, then this is a great signing for them. If they needed offensive line help, then signing JJ Watt isn't going to do them a bit of good.
Yeah.
They're going to, and that's the thing. It's like, is there a need? He is a great player, but one player isn't going to win a Super Bowl for you. You're going to have a whole team of players that are playing for that goal. And
I think part of the need, I think there's always a need for an elite pass rusher like a JJ Watt. I mean, if you look at who the NFC West has for their quarterbacks, and we're playing these guys twice here. You got Jimmy Garoppolo, Russell Wilson. Now you got Matthew Stafford. So you have a bunch of top tier quarterbacks. I'm so glad the Rams dumped Jared Goff. Oh, hallelujah. that's a whole nother thing. But I think it's a good signing for this JJ Watt pickup, because I think it's gonna let them add some more pressure to quarterbacks, because I think if you as the Patriot, as Tom Brady has proved, or as Patrick Mahomes has proved throughout his career, I mean, if the guy has a clean pocket and you let Tyreek Hill, give Tyreek Hill enough time to burn his cornerback, he's gonna go. He's gonna get you a touchdown. Whereas if you have a good pass rush, as you saw in the Super Bowl, a good pass rush, can interrupt the quarterback's rhythm, interrupt his momentum. So I think getting JJ Watt, if he stays healthy, I think that's another thing that's dogged his career, is that he hasn't been able to stay healthy. He's dealt with a lot of injuries. I actually read an article when he first got released as a free agent, talking about the potential fit with the Rams and how he and Aaron Donald could help each other out. And I was like, whoo! I mean, if the Rams could have gotten that, I mean, just imagine what a guy who gets double teamed all the time in Aaron Donald, and another guy who gets double teamed all the time in JJ Watt. I mean, there's two guys you got to double team, and that leaves you, one guy to cover two more people, to cover two different edge rushers.
Yeah, no, that would definitely. I mean, pass rushing is a huge part of the game, and if you put pressure on the opposing quarterback, if you make him throw the ball before he wants to, then good things are going to happen. So it'll probably turn out all right for him. I just don't know if they have enough team there. I think they're good, but I think they got to get better.
Yeah,
their quarterback is young. Kyler Murray is young, so they're still learning. He's still learning, but there's potential. So it's probably a good fit for his skill set.
Yeah, and I think they were I think if you look at the NFC, I mean, they came in third in the division, the NFC West. They were a couple of games behind the Rams, who got into the playoffs as a wild card, I think. I think that's because the Rams beat them a couple of times. So I definitely think that they're, they probably felt that they're a couple pieces away from being a true competitor. And I think they felt that an elite pass rush is something that they needed. So I think I like it for them. I mean, I think I like it with the caveat that he stays healthy. If not, they're paying $15 million to a guy who's going to be sitting on their bench.
Well, that's less than $1 million a game. So.
Yeah, but if he's not playing, he's not getting the quarterback, and then you're paying, and then it's a huge overpay.
Yep.
But overall, I think I like the deal. I think it makes the Cardinals a little bit better. And I mean, I'm still not worried. I think the Rams getting Matthew Stafford, I think the upgrade at quarterback is going to lead them to a much better record. I mean,
their
offensive
quarterback is definitely better.
Compared to,
he hasn't looked like much of a genius the last few years, but that might be because of his quarterback.
Sean McVay hasn't looked like a genius. Yeah. Well, I think
that might be because his quarterback sucked.
Well, I think Jared Goff has been a liability. I think they got the Super Bowl on Todd Gurley's legs. Jared Goff parlayed that into a huge contract. And now, just like with Todd Gurley, the Rams are regretting their overpay, paying in the moment rather than looking at it logically. And now they have a $22 million cap hit that's just dead money that they can't use.
Yeah, Denver didn't get to the Super Bowl because of Peyton Manning. They got there in spite of Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's like Jared Goff didn't get the Rams to the Super Bowl. He rode the defense and a good running game, and he didn't make mistakes. He didn't cough the ball up. He just didn't hurt him.
And this last season, he definitely did hurt them. There were a lot of games. There were a few games that were lost because of poorly timed interceptions by Jared Goff. I mean, that defense that defense could get it done. Like the Rams had one of the best defenses in the NFL last season, but Jared Goff couldn't.
Jared Goff couldn't
hold up his end of the deal.
Yeah.
And I know you weren't that sold on him coming out of Cal. I know you were definitely on the why the heck did the Rams do that?
Yeah, they over bargained for a mediocre quarterback, but their problem, not mine.
Yeah. But no, I'm excited to see what Matthew Stafford can do. I mean, I think he's been hamstrung by the fact that he's been playing in Detroit, which is poorly managed of a franchise, as you can see.
Yeah, that hasn't helped. He's had nothing around him to support him. So
I mean, even had Calvin Johnson before Calvin Johnson said, "This team is too bad. I'm going to retire."
So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Hopefully it works out.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what the NFL season is going to look like this next year. It's actually funny because I used to be I've changed my football loyalty so many times because I used to be a Steelers fan back with Troy Polamalu. I had to follow that USC boy back when he played for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then I switched over to the Seahawks when they had Marshawn Lynch and Beast Mode. I loved watching that. But then, the moment it hit me when I was a Rams fan is when I saw the Seahawks play the Rams, and it was when they switched to LA. And I always thought before that I was a Seahawks fan. And then I watched the Rams, and I saw them, and I'm like, and then they were playing, and I'm like, I want the Rams to win. And from then on, I'm like, I'm an LA guy. I love my LA teams, except for the Clippers. They need to move to Seattle.
Well, I was a Rams fan, but they left, and that's when my Ram fandom kind of stopped.
They broke your heart, and they can't win it back now.
They haven't been able to win it back yet. Although they have a really nice stadium.
Yeah, I haven't.
I'll give them that.
Have you driven by it at all?
No.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah. I would be. I'm more of a Charger fan than a Rams fan at this point.
Oof. I mean, they're both LA teams, but I feel like the Chargers. Yeah.
The Chargers started in LA. They went on vacation down to San Diego for 40 years, and then they came back. So
well, I think the problem is that the Rams got to the Super Bowl first, and now I feel it's going to be a situation of the it's gonna turn another Lakers versus the Clippers, where the Rams are going to be the LA Lakers of the NFL world, and the Chargers are going to be the poor Clippers who live in the basement.
It's possible. It'll basically come down to wins and losses.
Yeah.
If you have a team like the Clippers who never win, and you have a team like the Lakers who win a lot, then it's going to be tough for the Clippers to overtake the Lakers. But at this point, the Rams haven't won any Super Bowls in LA. And so if the Chargers end up being a good team for the next few years and making the playoffs and the Rams don't, then the loyalties, I mean, there's still a lot of diehard Rams fans here because they were here forever. But loyalties are fickle for teams that struggle, and wins and losses are key.
Yeah. Well, I think that's going to wrap us up for our show today. Mark, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate you being with us today and helping make this show possible. So everybody, we'll see you guys back on Wednesday here for another episode of the Average Joe Sports Show. Everybody have a good night. Bye-bye.
Thanks.